This has been really exciting to hear about everyone's work. So I'm excited to share. I am a writer and a cultural worker, and founded this organization called Create Forward, where I deliver creative strategies for social change. I work with a range of organizations around the country, but at my core, I am a storyteller, and so I'm going to start with telling you all my own story. So. In high school, I was an All-American in track and field with dreams of running in the 2000 Olympics. This is my team. We had just won the indoor national championships. We had broke a relay record, a record that stood for about 10 years. I was also ranked third in the country in the half mile. And that got me a full track scholarship to the University of Texas, which was like the #1 ranked program in the country at that time in 1998. And so I was on my way to achieving my dream of being an Olympic athlete. But a year later, I had dropped out of school. I was homeless. I was admitted to a psychiatric hospital. And it's unclear, how does a promising young athlete, one of the best in the country, fall so quickly and so epically? To understand that, we'd have to take a trip back to the 1980s, right, when America was on its way to breaking some records of its own and becoming the #1 jailer in the world. To do so, the U.S. had to launch the war on drugs, right? So in 1986, President Reagan signed into law the first of 2 anti-drug acts, and about 9 months later, my parents and I would really understand the consequences of that. Right? This is Reagan signing that first drug act. I actually used to live down the hall from Charles Rangel, so it's interesting to see him there. We never got to talk about what happened here, but on May 6, 1987, on my 7th birthday, my parents decided to take a fateful trip to Florida. Their addiction to drugs had already cost them jobs, homes, relationships, and drug trafficking would be another step down a very dark path we might never recover from. They told me that we were going to Disney World, but we were riding in this beat-up cargo van. It was empty in the back. I had sat in the passenger seat. The only luggage was my dad's suit jacket, and one pocket was a large stack of cash, and the other drugs. We never made it to Florida. We were pulled over on the interstate and arrested. I was patted down along with my Cabbage Patch doll, and my mother and I were put into a holding cell together. When you're in jail, so much time passes in this very dark, closed space that you don't know how long you've been there or when you'll get out. I spent my 7th birthday in a jail cell with my mother. Neither of us was a threat to public safety. What she needed was rehabilitative care. What I needed was a safe and secure home. But instead, the U.S. punishes the children of drug addicts. We punish children like me. That would not be the last time that I would watch my parents taken away in handcuffs. And I'm not alone in this experience. What we know now is that childhood traumas like parental incarceration can have a devastating impact on long-term health outcomes well into adulthood. So at 19, when I thought the worst was behind me, I was diagnosed with PTSD, anxiety, depression. I was embodying the long-term consequences of our country's failed war on drugs. But what remained true was the resilience I had always found in imagination and in storytelling. I became obsessed with using stories to transform our country's culture of punishment. Over the last 15 years, I've engaged in a number of experiments using storytelling to engage the public imagination. I worked with Blackout Arts, using art and poetry and stories to activate dialogue, calling hyper-incarceration into question in over 26 cities across the country. I traveled to places like Rwanda and Chiapas, Mexico, where the people's stories are centered at the center of justice-seeking practice to end genocide and the destruction of culture. I brought what I learned back to the U.S., applied it to my work in communities in Bushwick, in jails like Rikers Island, working across the Gulf Coast with survivors of Katrina. And then I co-created this project called Spread Mass Love, which changed my life. After years of creating space for others to tell their stories, this was the first time I was really telling my own story. My creative partner, Marlon Peterson, and I created a platform for us for using stories to reveal the intersectional ways we experience the harm caused by mass incarceration. What I discovered through Spread Mass Love is that if we are to end our culture of punishment, we must center love and relationship. Using the technology of the circle, we make the exchange of stories a relational tool that repairs harm, disrupts assumptions about good and bad people, those who deserve punishment, and those who deserve care. What I'm designing now is a model centering those directly impacted, extending out to larger and larger concentric circles of people committed to justice and healing. By intentionally deepening the relational aspect of the storytelling process, I believe we can create sustainable change, transform our culture of punishment, ensure that efforts to decarcerate America really stick because they are rooted in new values and practices. So here's my mission. I plan to bring this dialogic model of storytelling to about 20 cities over the next 2 years with really incredible national partners, Just Leadership USA, the States of Incarceration exhibit through the Humanities Action Lab, a public memory project, and train over 1,000 people directly impacted. This is a design challenge of a lifetime for me. How might we design generative, layered, and concentric circles of storytelling to create cultural change? Does the exchange of stories generate the agency necessary to shift the culture of punishment? Can we clear the stubborn and tangled roots of punishment culture before they strangle us all? I have to believe it's possible. I have to because that's my nephew. And for his sake, I need to make sure that that flag on his hoodie little back becomes a symbol of opportunity and not a straitjacket strangling his potential, guaranteeing his entry into a prison cell.